Aurelia was already humming when the trouble walked in. New York just after dusk, windows glowing amber, tables filled with the city's polished elite. In the middle of it all, Khloe Bennett, disguised behind a plain black apron, moved with quiet purpose, her eyes tracing every crack in the restaurant she built but now barely recognized. She set down a tray when a sharp voice sliced through the room. "You," the woman in the crimson dress snapped, not bothering to look up. "Bring me another glass. And try not to ruin it this time." Khloe's jaw tightened. The insult wasn't loud, but it carried. A private attack meant to stay private. "Is there a problem with the service, ma'am?" Khloe asked, keeping her tone controlled. The woman finally looked up, her smile slow and cruel. "The problem," she said, "is you." Across the dining room, conversations quieted. Something in the air shifted. An invisible line crossed by someone who had no idea who she had just chosen to provoke. And before the night ended, that mistake would cost her far more than a ruined dinner. For more gripping stories, subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales. The stem of the wine glass trembled slightly in Khloe Bennett's hand, though no one else noticed it. Around her, Aurelia throbbed with the nighttime rhythm of New York, soft jazz curling beneath the chatter of executives, lawyers, artists, and tourists eager to taste the city's pulse on a plate. Every polished surface glimmered, every server moved with that trained elegance, and every flicker of candlelight reflected the promise of a flawless evening. Except the crack in the room was already visible. It began at the booth near the windows, where the woman in the crimson dress leaned back, her smile sharp like a blade hidden behind lipstick. She hadn't even ordered yet, and still she behaved as if the entire restaurant breathed solely because she had chosen to enter it. Khloe approached with a calm that she forced into existence. "Here's your glass of Prosecco, ma'am." The woman didn't look up. She lifted one manicured finger, as if calling over a pet. "That's not what I asked for. I said I wanted something real. Not this cheap stuff." Her friends giggled, the mocking kind that didn't need volume to hurt. Khloe inhaled slowly, knowing exactly which bottle the woman had demanded, one that cost more than most families spent on groceries for a week. She kept her voice controlled. "Would you like to choose a specific label? I can check if..." "Are you slow?" The woman cut in, finally turning her eyes toward Khloe. "I said something real. It's not that hard. Unless, of course, this is the best you can understand." A few heads turned nearby. Servers stiffened. One busser dropped a fork. The insult wasn't loud, but it landed with unmistakable force. Khloe had worked her way through kitchens and dining rooms for 12 years. She had seen difficult customers, entitled ones and rude ones. But this woman, Madison, carried a different kind of poison. It wasn't frustration. It wasn't misunderstanding. It was amusement. She enjoyed the hurt she created. Khloe steadied herself. "I'll bring the wine list right away." Madison smirked. "And hurry. You're wasting oxygen standing here." Khloe walked back to the service station, her steps deliberate, her breathing oddly steady for someone who wanted nothing more than to tear off the apron and reveal exactly who she was. Not yet. Tonight had a purpose. She could endure the sting if it meant exposing the rot she had come to investigate. Behind the counter, Jessica, the senior server, whispered, "You okay?" "I'm fine," Khloe said, though even she didn't believe it. But the night wasn't finished with her. When she returned to the table, Madison was waving her over, wildly, rudely, impatiently. "You took your time," Madison snapped. "Typical." Khloe set down the list, and Madison snatched it with a roll of her eyes. "This place used to be exclusive. Now it looks like you hire anyone who can hold a tray." Her friends laughed again. Their bracelets clinked like tiny, mocking bells. Khloe felt her jaw tense. Something inside her, something she usually buried beneath professionalism and logic, stirred in ways she didn't fully control. She had spent the last 3 nights undercover to see how her staff was treated. She had seen kindness from most patrons, but also exhaustion, fear, and the quiet misery caused by one corrupt manager who treated his employees like disposable tools. She had come tonight prepared to face that manager. She hadn't expected this additional cruelty. Her thoughts were interrupted when a hand slammed against the table. "You!" Madison barked. "What is this?" On her appetizer plate lay a small hair, a dark strand carefully placed. Khloe blinked. "Ma'am, the kitchen staff all wear protective." "You think I'm blind?" Madison shouted. "You dropped this. You contaminated my food. You people don't know hygiene." Khloe's chest tightened. She had seen the strand fall, not from her, but from Madison herself as the woman fixed her hair dramatically moments earlier. The placement was precise, intentional. Jessica hurried over. "Is everything okay?" "No," Madison snarled, pointing at Khloe as if she were pointing at a stain. "This waitress is incompetent. I want her gone." Her voice rose louder, gathering attention like a flame gathers oxygen. Khloe opened her mouth to defend herself, but a familiar voice cut her off. "What seems to be the problem here?" The general manager, Alan Livingston, slid beside the booth with practiced charm. Perfect suit, perfect smile, perfect disregard for his own staff. "She ruined my food," Madison declared. "And she's been rude since we arrived." Alan didn't look at the plate. He didn't look at Khloe. He didn't even pretend to investigate. "Khloe, go to the back," he said sharply. "We'll discuss this later." Khloe's eyes narrowed. "But I didn't." "Now," Alan snapped, his voice low and threatening. The restaurant fell into a hush. Servers exchanged knowing glances. This wasn't new. Jessica's hands clenched at her sides, helpless. Khloe stood still. For a moment, Alan looked triumphant. Then the triumph faded when Khloe didn't move. "Is there something wrong with your hearing?" he hissed. Khloe finally spoke, her voice soft but unyielding. "There is." Alan frowned. "Excuse me. There's something wrong with my hearing," she repeated, "because it sounds like you're asking me to take responsibility for something she fabricated." Madison gasped. "Fabricated?" Her friends leaned back, eyes wide. "You're accusing me of lying," Madison said, rising to her feet as if preparing for war. "Sweetheart, I have eaten at restaurants that would never hire someone like you. And yet you chose to come here," Khloe replied calmly. "Which makes me wonder what you really came for." The room shifted. Conversations dimmed again. Alan's face turned pale. He grabbed Khloe's arm too forcefully. "Enough. You're done here." Khloe gently pulled her arm away. "No, Alan. You're done." Alan's mouth opened, then snapped shut. "What did you just say?" Khloe looked directly at him now, and this time she didn't hide the steel in her eyes. "3 nights," she said. "I've watched you belittle staff, cut corners, ignore health protocols, and comp meals for your friends while punishing servers for fabricated mistakes. And now you're enabling a customer who planted evidence to humiliate an employee." Alan stumbled back. "How dare you? How dare you?" Khloe said, her voice no longer quiet. "I built this restaurant to give people opportunities, not to let bullies like you run it into the ground." For a moment nobody moved. Then an unexpected voice broke the silence. "Is everything all right here?" Marcus Thorne, the CEO of Aurelia Hospitality Group, walked in with 2 corporate auditors behind him. He scanned the scene. Madison's rage, Alan's panic, Khloe's steady calm. He spoke softly. "Miss Bennett." And just like that, the secret dropped. Few employees gasped. Jessica nearly dropped her notepad. Alan's face crumpled. "B. Bennett." "Yes," Marcus said. "The owner has been here. Watching. Listening. And it seems she's heard enough." Alan's knees buckled. "This is a misunderstanding." Marcus cut him off. "The only misunderstanding was us believing you were qualified." Madison looked between Khloe and Marcus as if the room had tilted beneath her. "You're the owner," she whispered, her voice cracking for the first time. Khloe met her eyes, not with anger but with clarity. "I am." Madison's lips trembled. I didn't know." "That's the problem," Khloe replied. "You never cared to." Marcus motioned to the auditors. Terminate his employment, effective immediately, and escort him out. Alan pleaded. Khloe, please. You had many chances, she said quietly. You used none of them. The guards escorted Alan out as the entire staff watched in stunned relief. Madison took a step back. Look, I wasn't serious. I was just what? Khloe asked. Having fun hurting people you think can't fight back? Madison's facade cracked. You can't judge me over one moment. Khloe tilted her head. I'm not judging you. I'm holding you accountable. The entire restaurant watched as Madison stood trembling, stripped of the power she clung to so desperately. Your bill, Khloe said, placing the receipt gently on the table, will be sent directly to you. And you are no longer welcome at Aurelia. Madison's face twisted. You'll regret this. No, Khloe said softly. But you will. The cameras of half the diners were already raised. Every word had been recorded. Every insult. Every lie. Madison's eyes widened as she finally realized the magnitude of what she'd done. And that was when Khloe stepped aside and allowed the silence to deliver the final blow. Madison turned and fled, tripping over her own heels as the door swung shut behind her with a heavy thud. The room exhaled. Jessica stepped forward, tears in her eyes. You didn't have to defend us like that. I did, Khloe said. Because you deserved better. Servers nodded. Bussers smiled. A dishwasher quietly whispered, Thank you. Khloe looked around the restaurant she built, the people who carried it, and the patrons who had witnessed the truth. And she spoke in a voice that resonated through every corner of the room. This place will be different now. Safer, fairer, stronger. And no one, no customer, no manager, will ever treat you the way she did tonight. The staff stood taller. The patrons began to applaud. And the night that began with humiliation ended with a kind of justice that left the whole room buzzing with a sense of balance restored. But the real consequence, the one Madison could never escape, was waiting just outside those doors, where 3 journalists and 2 influencers had already begun posting her meltdown to millions. And that was a price she could never take back. As the doors finally settled behind Madison, the room slowly returned to its rhythm, but something in Aurelia felt new, lighter, steadier. Khloe stood in the center of it, watching her team regain their confidence piece by piece. They moved differently now, as if the fear that had lived in the corners of the restaurant had evaporated with the woman who thrived on it. Jessica approached her with a small, grateful smile. You changed everything tonight, she said. Khloe shook her head gently. No. I reminded us who we were supposed to be. It wasn't triumph she felt, but a quiet certainty, one she had nearly forgotten while chasing numbers and expansion. Aurelia had always been about dignity, about creating a place where hard work was seen and humanity mattered. Somewhere along the way, those values had been buried beneath excuses and trust in the wrong people. But tonight proved something powerful. Truth doesn't need to shout to win. Sometimes it only needs someone willing to stand still and face the storm. Khloe looked around at the staff, faces tired, hopeful, steady, and knew this was the start of rebuilding, not just a restaurant but a culture. And as she lifted a glass of water to refill a nearby table herself, the servers exchanged glances, realizing that strength didn't always look like authority. Sometimes it looked like humility. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales to help our community grow.